Hey there folks, Zone Master, the superpower of your MODX or Montage. But what is it? How does it work? And what can you do with it? Well, keep watching and all will be revealed. But to start with, let's do a quick demo of what it can enable. Here I have a live set page loaded up on my MODX, and I have 16 different performances loaded into each of the slots. Performance 1, which is currently highlighted in orange, is the MODX's internal sound engine, which currently is set to a piano. Performance 2 is then set to my matrix brute over beside me. Performance 3 is my deep mind over behind me. Performance 4 is my poly brute that's underneath it. Performance 5 is my Behringer Pro 1 over on the desk. And performance 6 is my Neutron, also over on the desk. Performances 7 to 9, I can then play some drum VSTs that are loaded into my DAW. So on performance 7, I have Spark drums. On performance 8, I have Stylus RMX. And on performance 9, I have my 80s Max drum kit. Then on performance 10, I have my Roland TR8S drum machine. And then performances 11 to 15 again trigger a number of VSTs that I have loaded into my DAW. So on performance 11 I have Omnisphere from Spectrasonics. On performance 12 I have Steinberg's Retrolog. On number 13 I have Korg's Poly 6. Number 14, I have a Roland System 1. And on 15, I have my Arturia V collection. To add some extra icing on the cake, I then have this layers and splits performance, which if I open it, you'll see has all of those instruments again set up. So on performance 1, I have my MODX. On performance 2, my matrix brute. 3, my deep mind, etc. And as you can see, I've got 4 here, another 4, another 4, and the remaining performances, my Korg, Roland and Arturia. Now again, I can pick and play each of these instruments separately, as I just showed, but the magic here is I can now layer together any one of my hardware synths or VSTs on my MODX keyboard. So here is my deep mind. And if I want, I can add a bit of piano and layer that with the deep mind. And if I really want to beef it up, I could add in my poly brute. I can also, in this performance, split those different instruments. So if I wanted, for example, I could have the poly brute down this end of the keyboard, the deep mind in the middle, and the MODX's internal sound engine up the top end of the keyboard. And I can even set up the performances to send program changes. So I could set up a performance that sends a program change message to all of my hardware synths simultaneously. This could be quite useful in a live setup where, for example, you're changing patches between verse and chorus or between individual songs. But how did I do all of this? How am I controlling all of my hardware synths and my VSTs just using my MODX keyboard? Well, first of all, my MODX is connected to all my other hardware gear via MIDI and to the computer via USB in order to control the VSTs. For more details on this, check out the MIDI routing videos in my MIDI playlist on my channel, which I'll leave a link to in the description down below. Then I go to the utility section, and under MIDI, check that the MIDI in-out is set to MIDI and not USB. Then I enable the Zone Master function on the MODX to make the magic happen. Go to Advanced in the utility section and turn Zone Master on. If you've got a montage, I'm not sure you need to do that bit, as I believe the Zone Master is permanently enabled. Turning on Zone Master enables various functions that are otherwise hidden. For example, here's one of my performances from earlier with the Zone Master turned off. And under Part Settings, you can see there are just two tabs, General and Pitch. However, if I go back to the utility screen and turn the Zone Master on, and then go back to the performance and back to the part settings, you'll now see that as well as general and pitch, I have two extra tabs, zone settings and zone transmit. And these tabs open up a whole new world of possibilities. Now that the relevant settings are in place, this is how I then have everything set up. Let's take my Matrix Brute as an example if I was setting that up from scratch. Press the category button and then choose Init, and then choose any one of the init patches. We'll choose Init Normal for now. It doesn't matter which, as we won't be using the sound from here anyway. Then hit the performance key, press the heading for the part, and then click Edit. Go to Part Settings and then Zone Settings and turn the zone to on. Set the transmit channel to the required channel. In this case, it'll be channel 2 for my Matrix Brute. And for now, I'm going to turn the bank select and program change boxes off. Then if I go to the General tab and press under part name, I can then change the name. So here I'll type in Matrix Brute. Now if I go back to the performance screen, you'll see that that part has changed its name to Matrix Brute. And if I play some keys, it triggers my Matrix Brute. Finally, I click on the main performance heading, and if I type edit, I can then change the overall name for that performance, not just the part. So again, here I'm going to put Matrix Brute. And if I navigate back to the main performance, you'll see that everything is now set up. I've then repeated that process for all my hardware synths and VSTs in my DAW, setting up 15 different performances on 15 different MIDI channels. And if I go to category and then choose user and no assign, you'll see all those performances set up with each performance relating to a separate instrument. So the Matrix Brute on channel 1, the Pro 1 on channel 5, the DeepMind on channel 3, etc. In order to easily navigate between these performances, I've then set each of them up in a live set page as I demonstrated at the start. First, choose the performance you want to add to the live set. For example, here it's my MODX piano. Then open a blank page in the live set screens, press edit and then press plus, and that performance will be inserted into the live set. And then click done. Then go back into your categories and find the next performance you want to add. In this case, it'll be my Matrix Brute. Bring that up as a performance, go back to live set, press edit and press plus, and now the Matrix Brute has added. And then press done. And then repeat that as necessary, adding your performances to the live set list. And what you'll end up with is something like what we started with in the demo at the beginning, with all of my 15 performances set up and my layers and splits performance. Now, as I demonstrated at the start, you can also layer and split any one of your synths, either hardware or VST, across the MODX keyboard. It's worth mentioning here you can only layer and split parts 1 to 8 of a performance on the MODX and Montage, not all 16 parts. Now, this may be seen as a bit of a limitation, but being able to stack up to 8 different synthesizers is pretty good in my books. To do this, as I showed earlier, I have an individual performance called layers and splits. If I open it, you can see that I have all of those individual performances that I set up earlier now set up as individual parts within a single performance. So within this one performance, I've got my MODX Matrix Brute DeepMind, Polybrute, Pro 1 Neutron, my VST drums, my TR-8S drum machine, and my Steinberg Korg Roland VSTs, etc. To add these parts, all you need to do is click on the plus in a spare part and then choose a performance that you want in there. So for example, I'll add my MODX piano again, and if I go back to the performance, you'll now see that that MODX piano has been added into that 16th slot. Then for all the parts except part 1, which is the MODX's own sound engine, I've turned the mute on. This stops the MODX's internal engine from sounding when playing any of these parts, which are obviously related to other instruments. Now, like on the main live set screen, I can choose each one of these parts and play them individually, but unlike the live set screen, now I can move seamlessly between them as the sounds don't cut off as I swap between instruments, which means you can sustain one instrument and then continue to play another instrument over the top. For example, here's my DeepMind and then some piano. And here's me just moving between some instruments. Next, by using the keyboard control function, I can then layer the synths as I demoed earlier. So if under my DeepMind I press this keyboard control icon, I get my DeepMind. And if I press the keyboard control icon for my MODX, I get them both together. And if I then add the Polybrute as I did earlier, I get all three. Also, as I demoed earlier, I can then split those different instruments across the MODX keyboard. For example, if I go into the Polybrute part, click on Edit, and then click on Zone Settings, click on Zone Limit, and then Keyboard, and then press the lowest key on my keyboard, it'll assign that as A-1, and then if I go to the upper limit, again make sure keyboard is highlighted, and then I'll press a C, say 2 octaves up from the bottom, you'll see C2. Now you'll find that I can only play my Polybrute from C2 downwards, so at this bottom end of the keyboard. But if I try and play at the top of the keyboard, nothing happens. And I can do this for all the other parts in the performance, setting different ranges for each instrument. So effectively I could have 8 instruments split across 8 different ranges of the keyboard, or I could have one instrument down the bottom end, one instrument up the top end, and then maybe 3 synths layered together in the middle. So it's really flexible as to what you can do. Now we come to program changes. As I alluded to at the start, you can program different performances in your MODX to send out program changes to all of your hardware or VSTs. This could be especially useful in a live performance when you're changing patches in between songs, or maybe from the verse to the chorus you need to change sounds. To do this, go to a part within a performance. For example, my Matrix Brute here, click on Edit, and in Zone Settings, make sure that Bank Select and Program Change are turned on, and then enter the relevant bank number, MSB or LSB, and the program number. For more detailed info on MIDI program changes and using MSB, LSB and program change messages, please check out my dedicated video on MIDI program changes that I'll leave a link to in the description down below. So for example, here I have 3 performances set up related to my matrix brute, and each one of these performances sends a different program change message to my matrix brute. So performance 1 sends a program change message for the first preset on my matrix brute, which is this. And if I press the second performance, it sends a new program change message to the matrix brute and moves it to the second preset. And if I press performance 3, it sends another program change message to my matrix brute, and in this case moves it to the third preset. So effectively you can do on your MODX what programs like Mainstage and Camelot do, enabling you to control all the layers, the splits, play any one of your instruments, send program change messages, etc., all from one master keyboard. And you could program up the live set for an entire performance, all the songs, all the different segments of those songs, etc. And to be honest, that's pretty cool having all of that functionality built in to your workstation, whether it's the MODX or the Montage. And finally, controlling CCs. It is possible on your MODX or Montage to set up the assignable knobs to control CC functions on other synths, whether hardware or VST, controlling things like cutoff, resonance, filter envelopes, etc. For example, here I want to control the master cutoff on my matrix brute, but using one of the assignable knobs on my MODX. To do this, go to the performance you want to use and select the relevant part, matrix brute in this case, and then click on Edit. Then choose Mod Control and Control Assign. Then under Display Filter, choose Assignable Knob 1. This can either be done from the drop-down menu, or if you press Auto Select, you can then twist the knob and it will enter the correct number. Change the display name, so here I've put Matrix Brute Cutoff, and then hit the box that says Edit Common Control Settings. Again, make sure under Control Assign that you have the correct assignable knob, and again change the display name. Again, here I've put MB Cutoff. Then go to Control Number, and for assignable knob 1 in this case, set the required CC, which in this case is 27 for the master cutoff on my matrix brute. If we now go back to the performance and select the part, you'll see that assign knob 1 now says MB cutoff. And if we now go back to the performance and select the part, and if I play my matrix brute using my MODX keyboard, I can now use assignable knob 1 to control the master cutoff on my matrix brute, like this. Now, I tend not to use this CC control in the studio that much, as it obviously has some limitations, and I tend to tweak and sculpt the sounds on the individual synthesizers themselves. However, as in my previous video on what can you do with a MIDI keyboard, which I'll leave a link to down below, this could be highly beneficial in a live environment where you've got lots of different synthesizers, either hardware or virtual, and you want to tweak certain parameters but do it all from one master controller. Well, that's about it. That's the MODX and Montage Zone Master function, and how you can use it to pretty much control everything in your studio or on a live rig. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful, and if you have, please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring that bell, as it really is appreciated. And if you have any questions, then please leave them in the comments down below. Indeed, any feedback or comments are gratefully received. And as a reminder, please check out the playlists on my channel, as there's loads of other videos I've made there that you may find useful. But for now, I've been Graham. Take care and catch you later.